quick rant on Trey. So what I want to say is this, the Yorks, John and Jetty, they care about one thing. They care about optics more than winning. They care about optics and marketability. You heard it in Pareg's, lemonade comments, right? I mean, I think what you have here with Trey is kind of a double-edged sword, and Lynch being somewhere in the middle of it in the sense of this. I think that there's a certain portion of this wine and cheese fan base. I grew up around it. I grew up in Sonoma County. Just a certain portion, not everybody, not the blue collar fans that are on, talking to you and stuff, but that spend a lot of the money. I think there is a certain portion that are stuck in the past that want their franchise quarterback to look like young Joe Montana. They want a right guy that looks like them.
And they definitely don't want him to look like Colin Kaepernick.
No. There was a backlash on him back then too, I remember. And
tattoos? Oh my God.
Yeah, Brock Purdy comes along, and is there anyone more marketable? He looks great. He's a nice kid. Everybody's in love with him. So from an optic,
he looks 15 years old. I mean, he's very marketable to the everyman. He looks like your child. He looks like your son, your friend. Yeah.
It's going well. A certain portion of our fan base, if Trey Lance does blow up, do we want
this kind of a quarterback?
Kind of like Lynch, right? He's the perfect face GM. He's a guy.
True.
So then you go over to Shanahan. Anything he does with Brock, he's going to look like a genius because he's the last in the draft. So for Shanahan's ego, he's perfect. That's why Brady and A-Rod will never come, because I think also Mike, you talk about Mike a lot the last few weeks. I think we don't talk about him enough. I think the reason Brady never came is because Mike is tied to Elway, and the Shanahans have a complex. They don't want to be just like that asterisk next to their championship. Like, oh, well, if you bring Brady, it's just going to be like, it's because Brady came. So I think there's a little bit of that too. So I think for Kyle's ego, Brock also really fits the mold. So you've got this mixture of optics. There's other things.
And if Jed's not going to hold anyone accountable for Trey Lance, then why not pivot to Brock?
Yeah.
If he doesn't care, just move on. Yeah.
So the Yorks are probably on board with trading him. Kyle's not fully again. I think that Kyle was on board with Trey, but I think that now that Brock did what he did last year, and I'm not saying, look, Brock,
it takes the pressure off. Like you could just
good stuff.
Yeah.
And I do think he could potentially be great, but I just think the reasons they're trading Trey, those are a couple of factors that don't get talked about enough that I think are on the table. And I do think
it was funny, like when they almost drafted Mac Jones, I feel like a lot of Niner fans, like the blue collar ones, flipped out. They're like, I don't want a quarterback like this. I don't want another white statue. I think that's how a lot of fans felt. And so the Niners went the other direction. And then the silent majority, the wine and cheese, were like, hey, wait a second. This is not to my taste.
That's it.
This is not to my taste.
I mean, I hate to say it, but
I'm not prejudiced. It's just not to my taste.
Yes. That's a good way of looking at it. Yeah. It's very smug kind of.
Yeah. It's not the way he looks. It's the way he plays. Like, Right. Yeah.
It's like the Knights versus Oakland. It's just.
Yep.
Up in both cities. I spent a lot of time in both cities. And I just think you've got a real kind of torn fan base. But the ones that spend the most money are the ones the Yorks care about the most. Let's face facts. It's business at the end of the day. They care about optics more than championships. They've been very abundantly clear and basically saying that without coming out and saying it. So I think what we have is and it's going to be interesting to see, because I think they probably will end up trading him, if not this year, next year. It'll be interesting to see if Trey ends up balling out. It's just going to be fascinating to watch how that domino effect of that happens.
True. Real quick, you're seeing it already, but the Niners can market, at least now, Brock Purdy as the next Joe Montana. He kind of looks like Joe. This hair is the similar color, the eyes. I mean, he's scrappy. He doesn't have a strong arm, but he's a gamer, and he's got poise, and he's, confident. I mean, you can do all that right now. And it's like, to your point, I do think a large section of the season ticket holders want the next Joe Montana.
Yeah.
Not just the next franchise quarterback, the next Joe Montana.
Yeah. And
yes.
You saw that footage of him the other day at the Giants game, and all the fans are cheering. He gets up and, waves at everybody. It's like, that's kind of the thing they want. And his face, you look at that picture of John and Jed and Kyle, and that one that was just up with John's Yorks wearing that terrible toupee, but they all look a
The same.
certain. It's a
Yeah.
frat thing. That the frat
Yeah.
thing is real, and
Correct.
I think I'm not saying that there's any racism per se. I just think they care about the face of the franchise having a certain marketability.
Well, remember, real quick, remember where the franchise was when they took over. Who was the face of the franchise when they took over?
Well, I mean, you had
Colin Kaepernick.
Oh, you mean these? I was thinking about back.
This was the franchise that started the kneeling.
Yes, exactly.
It was the face of that.
Yep.
Then they came in, and now nothing like that anymore. No. Nothing like that anymore.
They got rid of Colin right away. I mean, one of the a decision that really made me worried about this regime was when they actually decided to bring in Brian, 5 interceptions in the first half, Hoyer playoff game. I thought that performance back, a lot of people don't remember when he played for the Texans, when he threw 5 interceptions and a half against the Chiefs in a playoff game. It was like the worst playoff performance I'd ever seen. So when they replaced Kaepernick with him, I was like, I couldn't believe it. I still don't understand why they did that. But
real quick. Marcus, you're next. 2-minute warning. Pull over. Marcus, you're next. Pull over. 2-minute warning. Sorry, John, keep going.
It was just optics. Everything about it works. I think especially then, and I think even with Harbaugh to a point, the optics kind of crept into, and I have a feeling Harbaugh probably kind of called him out on it behind the scenes. He seems like the kind of guy that would have been like, F your optics, dude. You know what I mean? And
because Harbaugh only cares about winning, and I don't think he cares when anyone thinks of him.
I think so.
Look at how he dresses.
Won a championship because I think he's actually a pretty badass coach, but he probably will eventually. But it's just the whole thing kind of stinks the way it's played out, and I think there's just a lot of factors that people don't realize that behind the scenes that factor into why Trey might get traded. Because you're right, if they trade him, it's the worst trade in history, in my opinion, as well. And then if he goes on to be great, it even exponentiates that times like 10. I mean, what can you say, you know?
And I think what's interesting is you look at the Eagles again. Like the Eagles have for decades embraced black quarterbacks, embraced them, from Randall Cunningham to Donovan McNabb to Michael Vick to now Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts was controversial. People thought when he came out, they were like, "Are you going to change positions?" He was a 2nd-round pick, and they were like, "No, this is our guy. He's a franchise quarterback." And the team is also very African American. They rallied around him. They were like, "I don't care how he's playing. We believe in him. We believe in him." And they spoke it into existence. And I just feel like there's a difference. There's a stark difference between that culture and this culture. I'm with you on that, John. Thank you very much.
Hang out in Philly, and you just hang out.
It's different.
The city, it ain't. San Francisco is very different. It ain't Philly, man.
It's not. John, great stuff.
Best to you. Take care, dude.